Welcome to the Raging Hardin podcast. We're here to get raw and real and talk about our fucking feelings. This is not your Nana's Bible study, so you've been warned not to listen to this in the car with the kiddos. Dr. Paul Hard, professor, and I'm going through his bio here. He's got a PhD, 3 master's degrees, a cosmetology license. So I'm just kidding. No, but you have a lot of degrees, and I remember going to your party when you got your doctorate's degree. My little boy was just a tiny boy.
Yeah, that was 2008, and
Wow.
I think we had it at the wine shop there in Gunner back in the day. Yeah.
So that was. I've always been really interested and curious about the field of counseling and therapy and psychology, and I really feel like we should get a degree, or they should at least give us credit hours for the years we've been in therapy. There should be some kind of certificate program for that.
It might be a survivor's pin or something like that. I was remarking to a colleague recently that the gay community, LGBTQ plus, queer, rainbow family, however we're referring to it these days, I get lost in the alphabet soup, more inclined and more likely to seek therapy once, and too often less likely to return. And
I've been that girl.
yeah, and here in the Southeast, particularly, this is an issue now. It's gotten better than it used to be. You can actually find LGBT affirming therapists. In fact, obviously you can find a gay therapist if you really want. Don't have my shingle out right now. I have too much else on my plate. But so you can find it. But there was a time, and it still is to some extent, if you step into the wrong door. I had somebody that was suffering from depression, anxiety, and contacted me and said, I need you to recommend me to a therapist. And I said, I thought you had gone to see someone. And he said, well, yeah, I did. And I said, introduced himself to the therapist and spent a little time and said, and I'm suffering from some depression. This is what it looks like. And I think that it's impacting my husband and our relationship. And therapist in question, literally, if they had had pearls, they would have been clutching them. They took in a breath and leaned back away from the client. And he saw this and he said, yeah, I get where you're coming from, but the problem is not being gay. The problem is clinical depression. And the therapist responded, well, you've got to understand, darling, that there's consequences for the actions that you do. And it's like, and I've got to really work on this expressionless thing I'm supposed to do in counseling, because I said, and what was their name? And they said, I'm not telling you. I said, oh, come on. Tell me their name. You know you want to. And he really is bad when the client is more protective of the therapist than they are of them. Yeah. And I said, would you at least promise me something? Contact the clinical director of that agency and make sure that they direct people like us away from this person. We've been hurt enough. You're coming for healing.
Oh,
you don't need that route.
I was lucky when I was younger. My parents sent me to a therapist when I first came out.
Mm-hmm.
And it was supposed to be a Christian therapist. I mean, we're getting off topic. But she was so good to me, and I had the best experience because I went in thinking and I was looking into conversion therapies for myself. Like, I wanted it gone. I wanted to be straight. And she was so sweet to me. And the first day we sat down, and she goes, well, I'm going to tell you, I do think you are gay. And then she just sat there, and I was like, yeah, no shit. And she was like, but I don't think you're wrong. And then I was confused because my parents had looked up this Christian therapist, and she said, so let's do this. Let's you and I not waste your parents' money. Let's work on you, and let's figure out how to make you better with this personally. Yeah. And how to be safe. And she was the first person that talked to me about HIV and the really the things that I was opening the door to that my little naive ass didn't really know about. So yeah, I had a good, but then I've had some strange therapy moments, but yeah, like it's so important to find a therapist that is affirming and understanding of where you're at in your life. My therapist right now, I took her the book The Velvet Rage, and I came in after reading the book and she goes, holy shit, what have you been doing? Like you have figured some shit out. And
Yeah.
she took the book home the next week and read it in a week and came back just as excited. She was like, wow, like my eyes are so open. She said, it reminds me of friends my mom had when I was a little girl that were obviously now gay to me. And I can see that my mom was being such an ally. And yeah, I thought that was amazing that she took the time to do that and was open to that.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it is, there's nothing else like it. It is, but it should not be such a difficult thing. I had someone some time back that said their kid approached a school-based counselor and said, I think I'm gay, I need to talk with you. And they said, I'm sorry, but I can't even talk with you about that. Now, I don't know if it was their issue or whether they were afraid of the laws in Alabama,
I'm sure,
or what the deal was, but I'm thinking, okay, here is the one person in the building who is paid to listen to you and paid not to judge you. That is, frankly, their job at the bottom end of it all. And this is the person that is shutting the door in your face.
Wow.
That
but
should
you know,
never
it's got to be scary right now working in the school system.
God, yes.
I just saw where one state was trying to pass a law that if you use chosen pronouns for a transgendered child, you will get
jail time.
Yeah, and a record for the rest of your life as a sexual offender.
Yeah, and see, all of this is smoke and mirrors that is performed by incompetent members of the legislature that want to have something on their bulletin board that seems to indicate they're actually doing some kind of work. We're trailing the country in healthcare, in education, and in every other indicator that you can possibly think of, but by golly, we're protecting you from the gays. Like, this is your real problem? That's what you're worried about? Who's going to be in the bathroom? My God, people, get a clue. I mean, if you really want to show me that you're doing your dadgum job, then do it. Don't waste my time on feel-good legislation that is of no use to me or anybody else.
But I think we've all gotten so much smarter now and been able to find information and just really have our eyes open to the bullshit that we've been paying for so long. But
yes. No.
I would like for you to tell us what you do now and a little bit about your life now. I know this episode is about loss and grieving in the gay community. This is something that so many of us do without the same support system that those in the straight world get. So, yeah, tell us about Paul and...
No, you what I'm doing now or what I was doing then?
Well, what you're doing right now.
Okay. Well, now
just give us your whole fucking life. Like, I'd like to hear.
In the next 10
how
minutes.
long have you been out?
Okay, I was a late bloomer. I did not actually come out until I was probably in either 38, 39, 40, somewhere in there, that vicinity.
Really?
Yeah. I was.
Were you married to a woman?
No, even worse. Sorry, lady. I'm sorry. Okay, actually, this is my third career. I started out in Baptist ministry. I am technically still ordained Southern Baptist minister, and that's another story. But
I went to seminary. I get it.
Oh yeah, it's seminary.
Right.
So that was my first career, and people, so you were on the down low. No. As a shocker, I was probably the most virtuous single Southern Baptist minister you've ever known. So no.
Oh, wow.
A lot of cold showers. And yeah. And so, after my first experience, and I still can't say this person's name without spitting over my shoulder. Rarely is it the thing that it should be. It's somebody that's meeting their own needs at your expense. But it was like, okay, I'm not getting that genie back in the bottle, so I need to kind of figure some stuff out.
But you knew, right? Did you know internally?
Let's face it, I don't care how we embroider this thing, we know, I think at a fundamental level, who we are. We deceive ourselves. We say, I'm going to think my way out of this, I'm going to pray my way out of this, I'm going to, any number of things. Aside from just being who we are and being comfortable with that. And, it's crazy because I reached a spot where I kind of figured, I really instinctively kind of knew, for those of you that are not believers, forgive me, but this is my journey. I instinctively knew that God, as I understand it, God was okay with me. There's no problem here. It was the doctrinal, biblical part that was the straw and stick in the mud. It was like, I don't know how to make that square with who I am and who I understand God to be. I mean, I was raised, about a God of love and acceptance, and that.
Oh, not me. I was Pentecostal, so.
Oh God.
Our God was mean. I remember the Methodists had a nice God.
Yeah. Well, there you go. Well, see, my current husband is a recovering Pentecostal. So I get that, and his most of his family has not recovered. So it's an interesting thing, but they're sweet folks. I love them to death. But this was, my journey was like, I actually contacted. I was doing somebody's funeral. We're talking about loss. I was doing the funeral of a friend of mine's mother, who knew me from ministry. I was not out. But he said, do you know what happened? Have you heard anything from Mickey? I said, Mickey? No, I hadn't heard anything. There were a bunch of us that used to run around. He said, oh yeah, he's decided to be gay. Yeah, got up this morning, decided to be gay, and he's preaching in some gay church in North Carolina. I said, oh really? Take that thing down mentally. And so when all of this started collapsing in on me, I said, this is not going away. I contacted him and called him and said, because there was a thing. I needed to talk to somebody who didn't have an agenda. They didn't have anything going on except they were a friend, and I didn't have anything going on except I was a friend trying to figure things out. And so he graciously let me come up and spend Halloween weekend with him and his family and his kids, and go to his church and just talk and just be me. And from that, I just came home and said, this is me. Oh, wow. And so that was a process. You talk about coming out is not a one-time thing. That was the coming out to myself. Now, the rest of the world was another story. I met David when I was living in Cullman. That was 4th of July, 2004. And I had dated a couple of fellas. And I tell people we met in the parking lot of the mental health center. I was working at the mental health center there, and we were going to go to Huntsville for a date. We'd been talking online for a while, and so I see him in the parking lot, and he's this big old red-headed bear with this, oh my God, if you're that type, you just cannot use your powers for evil. He had that sad, oh please, love me look on his face. He had
the sweetest face.
Yeah. And
he was a big man. He was such a big man, but such a big old teddy bear.
He was incredible. Well, we went out on a date that night. And what was crazy was he said, "You work here?" I said, "Yeah, I work at the mental health center." He says, "That's wild. My brother is studying to be a counselor." And I looked at him for a minute. I said, "Jonathan?" He said, "You know him?" I said, "I hired him this week." He was laughing. And I said, "This is more than funny. You have to let your brother know you're going out on a date with his boss." And I said, the next day, you can't answer any of his phone calls. So the next day, he finally answers a call from his brother, and he says, so, how did it go? He said, well, have you quit your other job yet? He said, you son of a bitch, what did you do? so that started us off well. Actually, David asked me to marry him not a year after that. We went to Toronto.
Toronto Pride?
Toronto Pride.
Oh.
Up there with friends of ours, and he asked me to marry him. I said no. It took that poor man 6 years of wearing me down.
And gay marriage wasn't legal at the time.
No. And we actually got married, and he said we could get a ceremony here. I said, let's go somewhere where it's legal. So if someday that changes, it's already done. So we were married on Marconi Beach near Provincetown, Massachusetts, and in May of 2011. Yeah, that was fun. We had a grand time. And then, of course, as you know, 2.5 months later, he was killed.
Has it been that long now?
Some things you don't get over, but your life grows around it. I tell my students all the time, someone that says you need to get over this is an idiot. There's some things you just don't get over. And I still choke up because it's the good memories that kill me. But that kicked off something. You talk about coming out. I was discreetly out to specific individuals. And my brothers knew. I just said, I'm not going to hide this. Well, of course, they made me promise not to upset my parents. But when David was killed, I just said, fuck it.
Yeah.
If you are worried about me embarrassing somebody else, I am not going to be ashamed of him. And so, yeah, the announcements went out. There were members of his family that would have been much happier if I had stood over in a corner and pretended we were good buddies. But I did the funeral. I was right there. I made sure that people understood he was my husband. So that then prompted a 5-year legal fight with the state of Alabama. He had a will. He left me everything. And even though all of that being notwithstanding, when I had arrived at the emergency room that morning, they initially would not let me see him at all. That I had no news except he was hurt. And of course they turned me away, said you can't. And you go from being angry to it's suddenly dawning on you, this is really bad. This isn't he's not just hurt. So obviously I eventually got in to see him after somebody that had a working brain cell in the hospital realized that this was a JCO accreditation compliance issue, even in those days, that I had every right to see him.
But I think that is one of the things that this generation now, and at the risk of sounding like a pawpaw, they don't realize that just not so long ago. I know when my son was born, do you remember Grayson had open heart surgery a few times as a baby, and me and my ex, who was his other dad, like we both couldn't go in to see him in the ICU, but of course I threw a bitch fit and we eventually got in there. But yeah, not so long ago, just to be turned away when your partner is at the emergency room in that situation. And it blows my mind how far we've come. And, it's easy to look around and go, we haven't made any progress at all, but progress has been made. The pendulum does swing. Yeah.
Yeah, it's been made. Of course, it's even just actually this past weekend. This has been my thing. I'm heading on to the 3rd funeral in as many weekends right now. It's a pain in the tush. This past weekend, I was at our church, and I said something about my kids, my son and daughter, who are about 3, and this little lady said something. I said, "Well, yeah, they have 2 dads," and she said, Well, how does that work? And I'm thinking, are you really that thick? It's either somebody had kids by a previous marriage, we adopted them, or we use surrogacy. It's really that simple. This is not rocket science here. Well, and I'm thinking, I don't know who I'm talking to. You just kind of, I'm wasting my time. She said, well, can I give you my contact information? And I said, you certainly can, and I will never use it. So But
Best
anyway,
gay friend.
yeah, oh my God, the stuff. I was on an airplane recently, and this, I don't know what kind of vibe I put off sometime, but the person sitting next to me, the lady of a certain age, said, "So your wife must be missing you being off like this." I said, "Oh no, my husband is probably missing me," and she squealed. I said, "Oh my God!" I mean, you think this doesn't happen? Yes, it does. She said, "Will you be my new gay best friend?" I'm thinking, I don't even know you. And the flight attendants came by, and she said, "Well, can I get y'all some drinks?" She said, "I'm going to have 2 vodka stingers, and I'm getting his." I said, "I am your new gay best friend. If I'm going to have to sit through this, you're going to buy me alcohol." So, yeah.
Yeah.
So it's wild, but no, things get better. I'm married to a great fella. Somebody said, "Aren't you old enough to be his daddies?" I said, "Sometimes I am." No, there's an age difference. I wouldn't have considered having kids except that I said, "Okay, if you want to do this, we're doing them both at the same time. If you want more than one kid, because my shelf life's running out before yours, and we need to get them across the finish line."
If Elton John can have kids at
Elton John can afford dadgum nannies.
but he can't afford to live any longer than the rest of the human race.
That's true. That's true. So yeah, no, I mean, I do look. You see these films. I forgot somebody recently, even older than Elton John, having kids, and I thought. But then it's like that Meg Ryan thing, it's different for men. I know Charlie Chaplin was having kids when he was in his 80s, and what's the name looks at this? Yeah, but he couldn't pick them up.
Didn't want to.
He didn't want to, no. But no.
Oh, well. So how did you, what do you think the difference in processing those moments to be going through what you were going through, also obviously still some internalized shame leading up to that point because you were still not yourself with everybody. And I know one of the things we learned to do is splitting, and we have parts of us that we present to one crowd or another, and we have the part of us we split off and present to our parents, but we don't show our full authentic selves to the world unless it's split up into segments.
Yeah, I tell people I'm kind of a reluctant activist. I actually had a local conservative news outlet refer to me as Dr. Paul Hard, longtime LGBT activist. And I'm like,
I still giggle.
I said, "You silly bitches." No, with me it was this thing of, first off, I wasn't going to be ashamed of the person I loved. And but as an extension of that, I wasn't going to be ashamed of me anymore. And third, here I was in a state where the emergency room would let me in to see him. The death certificate said a single man, never married. I had hell with the funeral home, even though I was paying the cotton-picking bills. I paid for the funeral. Nobody else did. I wasn't going to have it any other way. And so when I was talking with my attorneys from the who became my attorneys from the Southern Poverty Law Center, and they said, "You realize that if you do this, there's no being subtle." I said, "To hell with it. Nobody should have to go through this. Nobody should have to fight for their just basic decency. He was my husband. He left me everything in the will, but the will didn't mean anything. I could donate his organs, but I couldn't go in to see him in the hospital. So what is this? This is ridiculous." And I will say the good news is out of it. I just determined, okay, the difference was I didn't get to ease out. I was abruptly out. And I was in community theater for a while. At one point, I played King Louis in the Three Musketeers. I was in pantaloons and silk bows and all this, and I was still in the closet, and this wig and everything, and I was just like, there is no way to ease into the role on stage, because the curtain comes up and I'm doing ballet lessons with the dance instructor,
and so full ass drag.
Here you go. There is no way to ease into this thing. It's flame on, baby, because if you try to tamp this thing back, you're going to look like a bigger fool. And I just said, that's it. I'm out. I'm here. Somebody asked me on AUM campus and said, how was it coming out on campus? I said, I was never in. Anybody else could put their spouse's picture on their desk and refer to them in polite conversation, and I did the same thing. I don't expect anything more, but I'm not going to take anything less.
What does that say when we are... I think the same thing happens for a lot of us. Like, it's our story that we don't have the strength to present our authentic self to the world. But once we fall in love and that love is real, we will risk it all to honor that person. This thing that we've been hiding from everybody. But yeah, I think that was my big moment too. Once you fall in love and you become so protective of that person, and yeah, you couldn't have kept me in the closet. I know my parents and we are so close now, but for years I didn't go to their house for holidays. And they would invite me. I wasn't angry anymore. I had done the work to get through that. But, Mom would call and say, we'd like to have you for Thanksgiving. And I was like, Mom, I'd love to come. And thank you so much for thinking about me. But I can't leave Michael, my partner, at home by himself. He has no family in the United States but me. And I'm not going to leave him on a holiday. But I'm not angry. I love you guys. And that happened about 2 years, and I guess the third year maybe she called, she said the same drill, I said the same drill, and she went, no, we want you both here. And that was something they vowed would never happen, is that I would never bring a man to their house. And I mean, they're so close now. And
good for you. It's that, I'll give you another example. I was looking, Jonathan was coming out, my husband was coming out of the Pentecostal church. I had come out of Baptist. So, and I was now, going to Episcopal church, but that was just a little bit too different for him. So for a while there, I was trying to find something that was kind of halfway. So I asked a Methodist friend of mine if we would be welcome in her church. She said, well, I don't think so. But I think that you would be, and she hollered out to the secretary, said, so-and-so, would Dr. Hardin Jonathan be welcome in your church? She said, well, yes. I said, so-and-so, could I teach Sunday school in your church? She said, no. I said, baby doll, I've got 2 degrees from a seminary, Southern Baptist. You don't think I know my Bible? No, that's not it. I said, yeah. So I'd be welcome, but not fully, completely welcome like anybody else.
You wouldn't belong.
And it wouldn't belong. And there's the thing, it's like with your family. It's not enough to say, you're welcome if you're willing to take second place as a wretched sinner that we hope we can witness to. Unless I'm welcomed into the full thing, I don't need some milquetoast form of acceptance. You learn to take up for yourself. You have to.
Oh yeah. Well, and I think you finally get to that point when you're not blatantly ashamed of just being gay.
Yeah.
I think you get to that point to where you get really sick of being othered. You get really sick of... I know I had a pastor that I was working in the salon, and I was visiting this church, and he was like, how would you feel about singing on the praise team? Because he knew in seminary, and after that, I used to sing at my old church, and I was like, oh, I'd love to. But you realize, I was with my ex then, we were raising my child. I was like, we're a family, and we're going to be a family out loud in front of everybody. He's like, oh, yeah, well, it's probably not the best idea. And I thought, and we never went back to that church, but yeah, just being othered and being everybody's favorite faggot, that got old.
Yeah. I mean, I don't want to be your gay best friend. How about you just let me be your best friend, all right? I don't need special status. I just need to be treated like anybody else. And
I like some special status.
Some special status,
I like lay flat seats when I fly to Europe.
That's good. You asked me one time, what scares me the most, and I came to a conclusion. And some of you are way too young. You didn't ever see a rotary phone and use it. So, but one of the things, two things. One is beautifully covered upholstery that has been sealed in clear plastic. You know what I'm talking about? Yeah.
Yes.
1960s
The fancy
lovely
living
fabric
room.
couch that has been put into clear plastic permanent slip covers.
Yes.
And I just, life's too short. Rip that stuff off. You're perfectly preserved. Well, I'm not perfectly preserved. Here's the thing: I'd much rather live life fully experience it. I had somebody that came over and stopped for a glass of wine, and they looked at the bottle, and somebody had written on it. It was an anniversary gift for me and David. And they said, "Oh no." I said, "Oh yes. I'm not saving this forever. This was
Yeah.
to share with a friend, and it's not going to get any better. This is not high-priced, high vintage wine that's going to stay well. It's not going to
Yeah.
last. So let's uncork this sucker and let's enjoy it." And you just can't live life on hold. And there's the
No.
thing I think with a lot of us, particularly here in the Deep South, is you reach that spot of, I cannot protect you from me. And I can't live my life for you, and I can't protect me from me. It's time for me to be me.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm preaching to the choir here.
No, I love it because, but it's a process, and I think that's been a theme over every one of these that I've done is this growing and learning process. It's never ending. Like, you arrive to a step in your life and you're tested on that step. Sometimes you fall back down to where you were before, but it's such a process and a practice. Like right now, for me, just practicing vulnerability or bravery. Like, I'm gonna start referring to it as bravery because
Yeah.
that's doing the brave shit. And authenticity, that's the hardest one for me to, standing behind the chair, and my salon was the salon where all the women went, and I was everybody's good gay boy, and I heard so many times, "You're not like the rest of them," and I used to take pride in that. And towards the end of that career, I was like, I'm just fucking like them. Like, I'm doing the same nasty shit that makes them gay. Like, I am just like them. And yeah, just getting to this place where I'm going to be me, not political me. Sometimes I'm going to be wrong and I'm going to be clumsy and mess up, but just the process.
Yeah. Yeah. And life's way too short to do anything else. I mean, we got way too many bitter old queens out there. We need to stop that crap. We
Yeah.
need to, if you're bitter, then find a way to move past it, to enjoy the life that you've been given. It is just not worth it. And we end up eating each other up instead of being the support that we could be. I am the semi-proud sponsor of the used to be Gay Straight Alliance, now is Spectrum on this campus. And they just recently just about imploded.
Oh, wow.
And I'll just be blunt. It's about, we were started as an educational thing. We are the only remnant of the hate crimes vigil that used to take place every year in Montgomery. We keep it going here on our campus with our students, and we commemorate the murder of Billy Jack Gaither and the fact that Alabama still has no hate crime laws that reflect the federal laws. And yet the problem is that commemoration is almost exactly opposite of our second chance prom and our amateur drag night. Now those are fun.
Yeah.
But they keep forgetting the important stuff, the really important stuff. And I heard a student say, I don't want to get into all this political advocacy stuff. Sugar
Shame.
Lump, we are fighting for our survival. And y'all are fighting to see who can be under the spotlight. Our last drag show was a tank. It just flatlined because it was all about who can be on the stage and who could get the attention. And, I'm sorry, done with that.
You remember back when drag shows lasted, 30 minutes? And now, like, we go to a drag show and it goes on for 3 hours. Everybody wants 10 numbers and 12 outfits. And I'm like, girl, it ain't that good. Like we want to dance too.
I know. There's the thing. When we get on, we'd like to actually dance, but everything's all, and that's fine. But
that's the drag race world, though. Drag
here's
race.
The thing. It's like these, in the words of the thing, these are not often drag queens. They are just sad men in dresses. There's a difference. I mean, I've seen queens, and
you just lost all your princess points.
I know, I did. I lost all the princess points. I was in San Antonio for the first annual LGBT counseling convention. They'd never had one before. This national thing, and counselors from all over, and were there. And they had a drag show, and a lot of these were queens that came out of retirement to raise money for a local charity. They were incredible.
Oh, yeah.
Not only good acts, but there for a good reason. And the reason's got to be more than getting to be in the spotlight.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean,
that's too much. It's an inch deep and a mile wide.
It's just one more example of that. And we're all at a different place. We're all, healing it's not linear. I mean, it's not just a straight ahead journey. And after realizing what the internalized shame has been in my life, now you see it in other people, and you're like, you see those people and you just want to be like, oh, I wish you would heal. I wish you would go heal, bitch.
Well, and honestly, this is something we have to remind ourselves. It's hard to deconstruct our own journey sometimes.
Yeah.
You didn't get to this place overnight, and it didn't come without its pain and without its mistakes. And then when you see somebody that's just not there yet, you're kind of like, okay, but it is that thing of, I'm going to have to unpack this for you, and I've got to be able to take the time to do it. I'd say the other thing that worries me about, that scares me, is the lack of awareness that we are in a fight and that we have to help one another, and that no one will probably do it for us.
Oh, no.
So if we can't do it for ourselves, then who is going to do it?
I think we stopped celebrating our wins. We stopped celebrating how far we'd come because the noise got louder in opposition. And if we don't celebrate our wins, like, it's all losses.
Yeah.
And we don't see the wins anymore. And, once gay marriage was enacted, we thought we had arrived. And
now
look what happened.
I know of so many organizations that you might as well just say they folded. Because, okay, we're there. We crossed the finish line. No. Even with the civil rights movement, for every win, there was pushback. And we're seeing that same backlash against the community right now. And it's like Benjamin Franklin said, we either are going to all hang together, or we're sure as hell going to hang separately. And we need to hang together. We need to defend our trans brothers and sisters. We need to defend the baby gays that are coming along. I heard someone say that I was talking about the whole Chick-fil-A thing. I still have a conflicted relationship with the chicken. I know. It's because I know of folks, good LGBTQ folks, that work for them.
Yeah.
They're just trying to earn a buck.
Like I said, it's not linear, and some days I'm like, I will not support this. And some days I'm like, God damn it, you're not going to tell me I can't have this good chicken. So I get the conflict.
Yeah, it's that's addictive chicken. But no, and I actually had one young person that said, "Well, I know all that, but I just love their chicken." I said, "Would you shut up?" You know. Of course, I have this old gay problem. I'm like, okay, you're in your 20s, and people in their 20s are only good for one thing. Just stand over there in the corner and strike a pose and look gorgeous and shut the hell up. Now, I felt that way sometimes, but no, it is this thing of, okay, come on, there was a reason why that was such a big fight.
Yeah,
still
there was. Yeah, I mean, and we fought it so hard that he had to eat his words for a minute.
Yeah.
But it didn't change where the money went.
Nah, it didn't change anything.
You know, so many of us are.
They changed the window dressing.
Yeah.
But anyway. So,
But yeah, I've loved this.
Yeah.
Like, this has been really good. I know we just talked, but I think we covered things that were.
I hope so. I know that we've
Now.
kind of been all the way around the world here.
I kind of like it. Oh,
Yeah.
I mean, I have ADD, so I'm good with that. Yeah, it works for me. Maybe we can do it again as things come up and stuff. We can have these conversations. I love getting your perspective because, I mean, you're the professional.
No, well.
You know, I'm doing this podcast, and I'm like, I just like mental health. I just like the study.
Oh,
But-
God, yeah. And, I always tell people if the therapist ends the session too exhausted, then the wrong person's been doing all the work, though.
Uh-huh.
And, you've been out there doing the work, so,
Yeah.
you know. And,
I have.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll be honest, seriously, call on me anytime. This has been a lot of catching up and everything, so I get that. So anytime you want to be more focused, I have the same ADHD problem, so may not be any better, but
I like it. I can follow along.
Okay.
Yeah, so
Works.
I really appreciate your time, and I will talk to you soon, Paul.
Absolutely. Thanks
Thank
for
you
all.
so much.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to share with your friends and family. Also, if you have comments, questions, or maybe you want to share your story, you can email me at raginghardonpodcast@gmail.com.